Hello friends! So, it is January 4th, and I meant to start this on January 1st, but it didn't happen, and I was wanting to start it during the day when the lighting would be a little bit better, but the sun's going down when I finally decide to do this. So, I'm just going to get started on this Vanity Fair reading vlog. Part 1, of course, because I'm going to just do it by month, so next month I will be doing the second half of Vanity Fair. But I have started Vanity Fair. Today I have not done my reading yet, but I'm planning on reading about 17 pages a day. That way I don't necessarily have to read on Sundays, and I can just finish at least up to where I want to finish, which I believe was chapter 35, question mark. I will link my read-along announcement down below so you can kind of see exactly where we were wanting to be. I think it's chapter 35, but anyway, I'll just say so far so good. I really was going into this with very, I don't want to say low expectations. It was more like middle of the road expectations. I didn't expect a lot necessarily because I had heard of a lot of people who really didn't like this book. But within the first 34 pages, I am so far very intrigued. I am really enjoying Becky Sharp as a character. She is a piece of work and it's wonderful. I know a lot of people's reason for stopping reading this book was because the characters felt so flat, and so far I can kind of see what they mean by that. However, what's intriguing me about Becky Sharp, I mean, she's really made out to look like that classic femme fatale, like she is just an evil witch, basically. But she is written to be very antisocial, like with antisocial disorder. So being a person who is studying psychology and who recently has been learning a little bit more about antisocial personality disorder or psychopathy, which is kind of a, it's not as accepted as a diagnosis, but antisocial personality disorder is kind of like a lead up to that almost. It's as close as any official diagnoses has gotten so far. But anyway, I can definitely see that in her. Like, she's literally a sociopath, and that intrigues me so much. Like, I'm so interested to see how things fall out with this just because of that. Like, I don't even care necessarily how flat all the other characters are. Her character will drive this book for me. I think I will be able to finish it. I don't want to speak too soon because potentially I could end up DNFing it. Who knows? But I'm hoping not. I really have high hopes for this at this point. Even if it's just Becky Sharp and I'm just fascinated by seeing the train wrecks she causes, that will be enough for me. So basically, great things to say so far. I will say I can definitely see some of the inappropriate, maybe comments that wouldn't be accepted nowadays, the racism and other aspects of this story that I can understand why they bother people or why people tend to notice them. Personally, for me, I feel like a lot of the inappropriate comments are made by Becky herself, which again, she is a psychopath, she's a sociopath, so it doesn't necessarily bother me quite as much as far as what the book is trying to portray as good versus what it's trying to portray as not good. I'm sure there's going to be things in here that I still don't agree with as a modern reader, because that's just to be expected. Also, can you keep seeing my hand in the mirror behind me? It keeps distracting me in the camera. Anyway, moving back into this, that's just going to be my starting update. I am really liking it so far. I'm going to be reading a few more pages. I'm going to try to update at least once a week, I think is my plan. Maybe a little bit more if something exciting happens or whatever, but at least once a week throughout the month so that this video isn't too long, but I'm still able to regularly get my thoughts out. So hope those of you who are participating with me are enjoying it as well. I haven't really said anything in our Boxer chat, and I don't think anybody else has either, so we'll see what happens with that. But anyway, very much liking this, and I will update you in a few days. All right, so hello friends. It is January 14th, so a little over a week later, and I thought I would give you some updated thoughts as I hold it upside down. Updated thoughts on Vanity Fair. So I'm currently just over 200 pages into it, so I've made quite a bit of progress. And as far as my thoughts go, I'm still really enjoying this. I have been very sucked into it. It's been very easy for me to get through my pages every day that I'm reading, it's just been a great read, a great time so far. I still definitely would say Becky Sharp is very much a psychopath, a sociopath. She is crazy. In fact, there was one point where she was in a position where I literally thought she was going to try to murder someone. She didn't, but I would not have been surprised if she was trying to murder this person to try to further her own aims. And she's just a fascinating character. She's very fascinating to me. As far as other characters, well, as far as the plot, I guess I should start with, I am very intrigued. A lot of drama has occurred, and we've reached a point where I really don't know what the rest of the book is going to hold. I feel like we got to a plot point that I thought would come a lot later than it did, and so I'm very curious to see what the rest of the book is going to be, knowing that we have reached this specific plot point. I'm not going to spoil what it is, but yes, I'm very intrigued by everything that's gone on in this book. I will say, as far as the writing goes, I do feel like Thackeray comes across as a bit overly sarcastic in a way that makes him sound kind of pretentious and judgmental, which I guess kind of works for the book because it's Vanity Fair, but it does tend to grate on my nerves a little bit, especially because he was not the nicest person when it came to other authors of the time, at least based on my minimal knowledge about him. So anyway, I really have not loved some of his commentary, and I feel like he gets in the weeds a little bit, but there's also a sort of charm to it. So I don't know, I am very mixed on some of those things about his writing style. I also feel like there's not a lot of dialogue in this book. It definitely kind of follows more of a pre-Victorian style where there was a little less dialogue and more just descriptions of events going on, which is not my favorite. I prefer more dialogue. So that has made it a little bit, I don't want to say less intriguing because I'm still really liking it, like I'm getting through it really quick, but I would prefer to have a little more dialogue throughout the story so that I can kind of see what's happening instead of just being told what's happening, if that makes sense. So that is bothering me a little bit. I also have found Amelia to be very flat and boring. I have not been interested in her at all. It feels like Thackeray is just raising her up as this complete counterpoint to Becky Sharp, which is interesting in a way as far as she's very innocent and sweet, but she honestly is just as selfish as a lot of the other characters, and in some ways I feel like Thackeray wants to make her look out to be the ideal woman, basically. And I do find it interesting that Becky Sharp is constantly pointed out as being a very cunning and smart and intelligent woman, and therefore she is evil and manipulative, and I don't necessarily appreciate that he is contrasting her, excuse me, that's the better word to use, contrasting her with this innocent, totally like basically naive and silly girl. However, something just happened to Amelia that I think might wake her up a little bit, and she seems to be coming down to earth a little bit more. And so I'm very curious to see how her story plays out, because I think it could end up continuing in a very flat way, but I also feel like she could grow a lot more as a character than I originally thought she was going to. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know. I genuinely don't know where this book is going at this point, but nonetheless, I am really enjoying it. So I wish I could give more thoughts, but I really don't have much more other than that. I guess that was plenty of thoughts on what I've read so far for the first 200 pages, but yeah, it's really good. It's really entertaining. The method of storytelling maybe isn't my favorite, and some of the characters aren't as well developed as I would like them to be, but I'm hoping that changes throughout the story. Just to sum up my thoughts that I gave in this clip, I will definitely be updating you again sometime this next week. I want to do it at least once a week, so we'll see how the rest of the month goes, unless something particularly dramatic happens that I need to update you on. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I really am excited to see where it goes, and I will talk to you in a few days. Hey guys, so you're getting me with no makeup on, in my sweats. It is a lazy Saturday for me. I did technically work earlier, but it was at my job where I'm kind of tucked into my corner. I don't see anybody, so I often will just not wear makeup those days just because why? We'll just give my face a break, you know? So anyway, it is the 29th of January. It's been a long time since I filmed a clip just because with school I have been really struggling to find opportunities to film. Plus, I just haven't had a lot to say about Vanity Fair. I'm still loving it, still absolutely adoring it, but I haven't really had any new thoughts that I wanted to share. But since it's the end of the month pretty much, I do have a little bit more I want to read before the end of the month, but I think we're at a point where I can share some thoughts, final thoughts on the first half of the book. And like I said, I'm still loving it. Becky Sharp is just a piece of work. Oh my goodness. She is just getting better and better because she's getting worse and worse. Like, she is learning how to work people more and more effectively, and it is fascinating to watch. It's also interesting to watch Amelia. She's still not my favorite character. I think she is pretty flat, but she finally has stood up for herself to Rebecca, to Becky, and that was really fascinating to watch. I also have been really fascinated by a lot of the relationships in this book. I am in this clip going to get into a little bit more spoilery territory. I figure since it's towards the end of the vlog, this is the best time to do it. And then the next vlog, I'll keep away from spoilers until the end as well, so people who want the spoilery thoughts can watch those, but those who haven't read it and don't want to see it can stop. So thank you for watching if you've gotten to this point and don't want to see the spoilers, and I am excited to see you next time. But for those who are staying for the spoilery section, I am really fascinated by Becky and Rawdon's marriage in particular, just because he's a very interesting character, and I'm not totally sure how I feel about him yet. I feel like he clearly has a lot of flaws, and he's not necessarily a good man, but I really get the feeling that he really does care about Becky Sharp, which is fascinating to me. And I think in her way, she does have some level of respect for him in particular. I don't necessarily think that's why she married him. I definitely think the financial aspects were why she married him, but I think their personalities do kind of work well together. I think in a way, I think they have the potential to be like the Thénardiers in Les Mis, but specifically in the musical version. I think in the book, Monsieur Thénardier is a lot more terrifying, a lot more in control, whereas in the musical and the film, they're a little bit more of a balanced pair. They're both just messed up, and they kind of work together to put a lot of these plans in motion, and I really feel like Becky and Rawdon could be like that, but I also do feel like Rawdon has more of genuine emotion involved, whereas Becky, like I've mentioned several times in this vlog, is a sociopath. Like, she does not feel emotions, but she understands them very well. As for Amelia's marriage to George, I really don't like George Osborne. I think he is just so selfish, beyond selfish. I think the difference between him and Rawdon is Rawdon does have some genuine feelings for other people, whereas I feel like George has feelings for other people, but he cares way more about himself than anyone else. And it's interesting to see that dynamic, because I think Rawdon is in some ways more willing to actually feel feelings for other people. Like, he genuinely cares about Becky, and I think you see that between their different leavings of their wives, which I'll get to in a second. But I also think Rawdon is a lot cleverer than George. I think George is just so full of himself, but he's also very naive, which I think kind of possibly is what drew Amelia and him together, is their naivete. But getting back to the example of them leaving their wives, George leaves his wife just kind of feeling bad, feeling like he could have done better for her, but he never actually tries to do better for her. He just sits there and feels sorry for the fact that he can't do more for her, and just lets her take care of herself, basically, while complaining about the fact that she has to take care of herself. Meanwhile, I feel like Rawdon does what he can, like when he leaves his wife to go into this battle that has just happened. This is the most recent thing I read. He gives her everything. He takes only his like secondhand kind of older clothing. He leaves all the nice clothing for her, so in case he dies, she can sell it. And you see that affection and genuine willingness to do what he can to help her, while also still being a gambler and being very drawn into vice. But he does some level of providing assistance for her, whereas George just sits there and feels sorry for his wife, while really he's sorry for himself. And so it's really interesting to compare those two. Like I said, I do really like the idea of Amelia and Dobbin together, which I think you're supposed to root for. I think Dobbin and Amelia are meant to be the two people who are kind of outside of Vanity Fair, who are living in Vanity Fair, but are going to end up passing through it, if that makes sense. If you've read Pilgrim's Progress, you may be able to understand that analogy. But anyway, they're definitely the ones that seem to be set up to be outside of that. Yet, I feel like Amelia doesn't deserve Dobbin. Like, I think of all the men we've been introduced to, he's the best for her, but I personally think he's too good for her. I think she, in her own way, she may be very meek and quiet and very good, but she is very naive, and frankly, she's very selfish in her own way. She's very focused on her own emotions, on her own struggles. When her family was in this horrible situation, she was just feeling bad for herself and feeling bad for the fact that she can't marry the love of her life, which, fair enough, like, that is hard to deal with, but she didn't seem to spare a thought at all for her parents and what they were dealing with and how hard this would be for them. She also never gives Dobbin the time of day. Like, she's finally starting to, because she's sad and lonely and Dobbin's there. But really, you don't get this feeling that she really cares about him, at least not yet, and we're almost halfway through the book, like I said. So right now, I would say yes, I think they are probably a better, happier, potentially match, but not yet. I think Amelia has a lot of growing room. I don't know if that will happen, but we'll see. She has, like I said, she's finally stood up to Becky, and that was impressive. Although I do kind of appreciate that Becky, when Amelia stands up to her, she leaves, and that small part of her that does genuinely care about Amelia, very sliver of her heart, causes her to go out of her way to seek someone who Amelia can trust to help her. Since she no longer trusts Becky, which I did appreciate. I feel like that added a little bit more depth to Becky's character that I really liked. So yeah, that's a lot of my thoughts, my more spoilery thoughts about everything going on. But I'm not sure if William Thackeray is going to give Amelia much more depth than that. I don't know. I don't know how her character development is going to go. I hope it goes in a good direction. I hope it works out in a way that I'm able to root for her a little bit more, because right now I just don't really care much about her. Like, I don't think she necessarily deserves to die or anything horrible like that, but she's just not very intriguing. I think she's definitely the most or the least interesting character in this whole book. But we'll see if that changes. Anyway, that is my final thoughts at this point of the book. Before the end of the month, in the next few days, I will be getting to the chapter 35, which I believe we're going to learn a lot more about this battle that just happened. We just had a young man from the French army fighting Napoleon come in and describe how they lost and how it was a horrible situation. A lot of people have died. So I'm very curious to see how this falls out. Anyone could have died. Anything could have happened. I don't think Dobbin died. I think he's probably still alive and has made it. But I do think definitely either Rawdon or George probably died. I'm leaning towards Rawdon a little bit more, because I think Becky has a lot more things that are going to occur in her story throughout this book. But we'll see. I'm not totally sure yet. So yeah, we'll see what ended up happening. And I'm gonna close off this vlog here. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below if you've been reading, if you've been joining in, your thoughts so far. I do have a Voxer group that we've been chatting, but I know there's some people who are participating who have not joined the Voxer group, so please let me know down below your thoughts so far. and let me know if you agree, disagree on my thoughts. If you've read this before, no spoilers, keep in mind I'm not super far in, I mean, I'm halfway through, but I'm not in the second half. So if there's anything that happens in the book that I have not mentioned, just assume I haven't read it yet. And don't spoil anything for me, but still let me know your thoughts on my thoughts or your thoughts on the book. I would love to know. And yeah, we'll just leave it there. So again, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!